There is a silence in the Arizona desert that feels heavy. It is not empty, it is watching. For over a century, men have entered the Superstition Mountains driven by greed. Most never walked out. Some were found weeks later, decapitated. The Apache say this land belongs to the thunder god. We know it as the Lost Dutchman Mine, a treasure worth millions, guarded by a mountain that seems to eat men alive. This is not just a story about gold. It is a story about blood. The legend begins with a German immigrant named Jacob Waltz, a man whose shadow still hangs over Phoenix to this day. In the late 19th century, Waltz appeared in town paying for supplies not with currency, but with high-grade gold ore. It was incredibly pure, unlike anything geologists had seen in the region, leading experts to believe he had found a mother lode, a source of almost limitless wealth. Waltz claimed he had found a massive vein hidden deep within the Superstition Range, a place the Spanish conquistadors had failed to conquer centuries before. But Waltz was a paranoid man. He knew that revealing the location meant death, so he lived in secrecy, changing his path every time he entered the canyons. For years he trekked into the mountains alone, disappearing for weeks and returning with sacks of gold that fueled the wildest rumors in the West. It was only on his deathbed in 1891 that his resolve cracked. As he lay dying, he whispered cryptic clues to a neighbor, Julia Thomas. He spoke of a rock formation that cast a shadow like a needle and a stone face looking up at the sky. He warned her, "No miner will ever find my mine. To find it, you must pass the cow barn and follow the shadow." Then he died, taking the exact coordinates to his grave. Shortly after Waltz's death, the first great tragedy of the superstitions unfolded. Julia Thomas, the woman who heard Waltz's final words, believed she held the keys to the kingdom. She sold everything she owned, her business, her home, to finance an expedition to find the gold. She led a team into the blistering heat of the desert, convinced that the needle Waltz spoke of was a prominent peak known as Weaver's Needle. For weeks they scoured the base of the massive volcanic rock, digging until their hands were raw and their supplies ran dry. But the mountain gave them nothing. The landmarks Waltz described seemed to shift, or perhaps they were riddles that Thomas could not solve. She returned to Phoenix, bankrupt and broken, telling anyone who would listen that the gold was cursed. This failure did not stop the others. It only fueled the fire. Thousands of prospectors flooded the area, blasting rocks and digging holes, turning the quiet desert into a graveyard of broken dreams. They didn't realize that the heat was not their only enemy. Something else was waiting in the canyons. Decades later, the mystery deepened with the discovery of the Peralta stones. In 1949, a guest traveling near the mountains stumbled upon a set of engraved stone tablets. These were not crude drawings. They were intricate maps carved into red sandstone and diorite, filled with Spanish symbols, religious iconography, and complex topographical lines. Historians believe these stones might date back to the Peralta family, a Spanish dynasty that allegedly mined the gold in the 1840s before being massacred by the Apache. The stones contain a map to the mine, but they are a puzzle designed to deceive. One stone features a heart shape, another has a dagger. When fit together, they supposedly point to the treasure. Cryptographers and treasure hunters have spent the last 70 years trying to decipher the code. Some claim the stones are an elaborate hoax created in the 20th century. Others believe they are the only true map left in existence. But those who have tried to follow the stone trail have often found themselves walking in circles, or worse, walking into traps set by nature itself. The stones remain one of the most baffling artifacts in American history, a silent testament to the lengths men will go to for gold. Finding a mine in the Superstition Mountains is not a matter of simply following a map, stone or otherwise. The terrain is a geological nightmare of vertical cliffs, deep, twisted canyons, and labyrinthine paths that look identical in the harsh sunlight. Temperatures in the summer soar above 110 degrees Fahrenheit, turning the rock walls into an oven. Water is scarce, and the springs that do exist are often hidden or dried up. It is a landscape designed to kill the unprepared. But beyond the physical danger, there is a psychological toll. Many treasure hunters lost their minds in the heat, suffering from what locals call gold fever mixed with delirium. Survivors spoke of hearing voices in the wind, luring them deeper into the rocks, away from the trails. They reported seeing figures on the ridges that vanished when looked at directly. Landmarks described by Waltz would appear one day and vanish the next, swallowed by shadows or optical illusions caused by the shimmering heat. It is as if the mountain itself changes shape to confuse intruders. The true darkness of the legend revealed itself in the summer of 1931, turning a treasure hunt into a murder mystery. A 66-year-old treasure hunter named Adolph Ruth arrived from Washington, D.C., walking with a cane but carrying a burning ambition. He possessed an old Spanish map that he claimed was the true key to the Dutchman's mine. Despite grave warnings from local ranchers about the dangers of the season, Ruth hiked into the mountains alone. He was confident, he was prepared, and he never returned. A massive search party was launched, scouring the desert for weeks, but the summer heat made it nearly impossible to continue. 6 months later, an archaeological expedition stumbled upon his campsite. It was eerie. His tent was standing, his supplies were untouched, but Ruth was gone. His body was found miles away, but the discovery sent a chill through the entire state of Arizona. His head was missing. When his skull was finally discovered a quarter-mile from his torso, it had 2 bullet holes in it, fired at close range. This was an execution. Yet his notebook was found intact in his pocket, with a final scribbled entry claiming he had found the mine. The phrase, "Veni Vidi Vici," was written in the margin. The map he carried was never found. Adolph Ruth was not an isolated incident. He was the beginning of a terrifying pattern known as the Headless Horror. Throughout the 1940s and 50s, the number of violent deaths in the area spiked. The most chilling case was that of James A. Cravey in 1947. Cravey was determined to bypass the dangerous hike. He hired a helicopter to fly him directly into the heart of the mountains, dropping him into a remote basin known as LaBarge Canyon. He planned to hike out with the gold. He never made it. When he failed to return, a search was launched. Months later, his headless skeleton was found tied in a blanket near a creek bed. His skull was found 30 feet away. Police investigations hit dead ends, and authorities often blamed bandits or rival miners protecting their claims. But the locals knew better. They remembered the old Apache stories about the Thunder God and the rumors of a secretive group of guardians who watch the trails to this day. The violence was too specific, too ritualistic to be random robbery. It was a warning sign written in bone. The message was clear. The gold does not belong to the living. Today, the Superstition Mountains are a state park, visited by hikers and tourists who admire the beauty of the red rocks. Yet, underneath the surface of a modern park, the danger remains active. People still go missing with alarming regularity. Every few years, a fresh search is launched for someone who wandered off the trail, mesmerized by the legend of the Dutchman's gold. Most are found dehydrated. Some are never found at all, joining the list of ghosts that haunt Weaver's Needle. Geologists argue that the gold mine is a geological impossibility, a myth born of whiskey and heat stroke. But logic does not explain the headless bodies of the past, nor the unease that settles in your stomach when the sun goes down behind those peaks. Perhaps the mine is real, or perhaps the true treasure is simply surviving the journey back to civilization. Until the mountain decides to yield its prize, the Lost Dutchman remains a ghost story written in blood, drifting forever into the vanished point.